Oh yeah, I think that shit funny.
I am the fell dragon Grima. Who dies first?
Be right back. I gotta gather up my cards. You know what? You can just watch Peach Drive. I look like I work at Pizza Hut. Yeah, I do work at Pizza Hut. I go grab the nearest empty pizza box. Like, y'all be hating when I be wearing normal shit. 1 second, chat. Let me set up real quick. All right. Why they got the cat playing right now on the demo, the tech demo? Wait, actually, wait. Game off. Alright, Warriors. Mario Kart sucks. So, you know, it seems like they need to iron out a couple details and like kinks with some of the stuff in the game, but it's okay. Nintendo will correct it, but as it shows right now, it is robbing a lot of my guaranteed first places. So, you know, hopefully they change it, you know what I'm saying? Oh wait, hold on, let me use this play mat from last time. This was not like on the table. The Eevee one. It's time for the pull stream. We're gonna open the Destined Rivals first. I only have 9 packs for that. So what we got here today to pull, I got a Destined Rivals ETB. This comes with 9 packs inside of it, so I have to open it right now. I got a collector's booster box, 12 packs here. Goes for way too much right now. But this, I got this before that crazy drastic fucking price increase. And then I have Secret Lair. I have the complete edition because of all of them, foil, non-foil, and Japanese and English. There are some bonus cards that could potentially be in any of these, and that's why I'm opening them, because it's only a chance. It's only for the or the bonus cards are like Final Fantasy X summon cards. I need that shit. Preying on your downfall, go. Oh, go me up, hey, go me up, hey. You gonna pull some gas? You feel it? Hold on, I don't got nails, so. Kowalski.
Ironheart, Episode 1, the show which has my favorite way of entering a room. Gonna divorce Gates, I'm gonna divorce Stark, I'm gonna have loads of money.
What do you want more than anything? A knife with thorn his hammer.
At least she's honest. Not realistic, but honest.
I see, now we gotta cut the video.
It was fine when we were talking about how I was gonna nick everything from all of these people, but don't you bring your smut into it. But the friend's like, but I just want to be happy. You see Riri's attitude to that. Happy? Have you ever considered a life of crime and theft and murder? This is just someone that has kids. This is just single mom versus single mom in prison. Next up though, we get a monologue from her about how she really wanted to revolutionize Stark Industries.
I can be the greatest inventor of my generation.
Look, she's a zoomer, she's got low standards. To her, the greatest of her generation would be coming up with a new color of Teletubby.
Which doesn't mean much
See, she agrees.
without the resources to bring my ideas to life.
You do know inventions are what make you the money, right? You don't start with a load of money and then make No, her problem seems to be
After my internship abroad,
she got DEI'd into a position she doesn't deserve and now thinks she's owed it. Rather than having to work from the ground up, she got lifted immediately into an impossible fantasy land of technology, and now, oh, this is what I need.
realized I'm gonna need the equivalent of a whole vibranium mountain to be great.
See? She needs the crutch. No wonder she can't invent anything. She thinks if you just hit a piece of metal with a hammer, you're inventing something.
I need cash. Money.
Just in case you didn't know what cash was.
Tony Stark would be Tony Stark if he wasn't a billionaire.
Tony Stark wasn't always a billionaire. He had to work to invent things to be a billionaire.
I don't know what work is.
It's just the way the world works.
This is how the world works, not her, lazy scrounging bum. But she says her AI cost millions of dollars. I don't know why, it's crap. But we see her getting money from various different students in brown paper bags. So we see her complete lack of morality right at the start when she comes up with an excuse for what she's doing, a name, rather than cheating, fraud, crime.
My means of fundraising have been a little experimental.
It's just experiments, y'all. That's all it is, bro. Man dem ting in it, love. We need a Robin Hood clip to explain this.
Masked robbers who rap about their crimes. It's just sexy.
She even invents this guy's own personal energy shield for him. He's like, I'm gonna get an A. Right, no, you're gonna get a fellowship. He's like, oh, great. Now he's qualified for positions that he can't do with technology he didn't invent. He's gonna get somebody killed, and she's like, oh, this is amazing. I got 50 quid. Not that she's intelligent enough to know any of this. She's about 85 IQ, and I'm convinced that all the talk about being a genius and everything else, all of like her adventures, Wakanda and everything else, are just delusions that she had in a dream once, but she's too thick to know the difference. It's the only thing that makes sense.
My method goes beyond rules and red tape.
She means the law. I'm creative, I don't need to work. She's like a banker. I don't need to obey the laws of money. I can magic it out of thin air. Don't worry, nothing will happen. There won't be any negative side effects here.
I want to continue Mr. Stark's legacy.
She actually wants to subvert and consume Stark's legacy. She didn't want to continue anything. She wants to take it over and replace him.
And revolutionize safety.
The only thing people need to be kept safe from is you and the people you've got into positions that they can't do. You will see her advanced planning skills and intellect, though, where she came up with iron suit plus artificial intelligence equals 3. Yeah, love, I can't keep up with that. Her plan, though, is to make loads of Iron Man suits. That'll revolutionize safety by giving them to firefighters, first responders, medics. I'm like, are you insane? There's a whole arc in Iron Man about how only he should have his suit because other people can't be trusted with it. People like you. If you're already committing crime in one, you just make more for your criminal friends.
Working on this level of innovation does not come without risks.
When she says risks, she means she's too thick to do anything properly. All she did is plug something in. Oh, that wasn't too bad. It could have been worse. Okay, it got worse.
She did something! Everybody out!
That's how you know it's not her first time. She's done something again. I keep telling her, stop doing things. You're only here because you put a bit of Tipex on your IQ score. It's not 154, is it? It's 15.4. She broke his pissing arm with electricity. I don't even know how you do that. Notice how both the women in the room made the guy with the broken arm pour the tea for them.
All that considered, maybe you could convince the board to extend my grant. Just
Still asking for more. I've just burnt down your university. Give me some money. Give me it. Even she can't believe what she's listening to.
if I could just get my idea off the ground, could change the world.
You couldn't even change your Wendy's, love. She gets to talking to, though. You've been here for 4 years. You've had constant disciplinary hearings over that time. Yet you've made zero advancement towards your degree. Well, what would I get out of my degree anyway?
Some job in Palo Alto.
Yes, you keep whining about money, love. How about you get a pissing job? I don't want a job. Why?
And a bunch of guys I have to pretend to like.
Oh, no. You have to hang around those men folk. You know, the ones which are actually working for a living. This guy sums up the entire audience. I am exhausted.
I want real life scientific epiphanies.
I want to work out the secret herbs and spices.
You want me to do homework? I have to explain to my professors.
Is it because you get it all wrong and they're like, how did you even get to this answer?
You want me to be small, but I refuse.
I told you. She wants to be fatter than Einstein. Like Steve Jobs has nothing compared to my BMI. It's her one goal.
Riri, that's a hot pile of garbage.
You just want to be a thief, don't you, love? Runs in your veins.
Trash, and you know it.
You're trash and you know it.
Who here asked you to be small?
Me. Actually, if she was in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, I could step on her. But this is a change in her original origin, where she was telling her teacher what she wanted to grow up as and said, I want to be a scientist. The teacher was fine with it. She's like, no, you're supposed to tell me I want to be a nurse. Why would I do that? Well, you're supposed to tell me that women can't be scientists, they have to be nurses. That's what they said to the first astronaut that looked like me. And she went, no, I'm going to be one anyway. And then she did it. The teacher's like, you're just an arse. But Riri replies, I was kind of hoping that you'd tell me the opposite. So I would have something to inspire me to prove you wrong. Sorry, I can't help you. Rage. Would have been pushed down the stairs. That's how we end up with this, where she has to get called on being a self-absorbed, egotistical twat.
Trash.
It turns out all her courses have been tailored to her needs. Special ones. Like, we know you can't keep up with the normal people. Remember those tambourine lessons? We don't give those to everybody.
And I work hard to get qualified people like us.
I'm the only one that could put up with you. That's why I'm here. She even says I was very lenient with you too much because we look like each other. But Riri's been destroying the education institution across everything in the area for all the students. And when she's talking to her, just watch her face.
School in the area. Cambridge, Providence, New Haven.
Quite frankly,
I'm rolling her eyes, I'm looking down, I'm going over here. Doesn't think she's doing anything wrong. I'm not going to be held accountable for it. Cave a freaking skull in.
you have been a horrible steward of Stark's legacy.
She got nothing to do with Stark or his legacy. She just stole his invention, completely unrelated to him. That guy is more a steward of Stark's legacy than she is. Apparently, though, they have a zero tolerance policy on plagiarism. Not that she thinks that applies to her.
Accept responsibility, and we'll get right back to my studies.
So you don't accept responsibility then? We have a zero tolerance policy. Okay, I'll get back to work then, shall I? No! Prison! They're like, oh, no, we can't though, because you know when you destroyed our entire electrical grid and burnt down the university? It's too expensive. You're expelled.
You're expelling me?
Did you see the art? You're expelling me? I'm gonna get my suit and strangle you.
Effective. Immediately.
Very effective, actually. I'm gonna expel you out that window. After that, they send her with the security to take her property. As you can see, she immediately starts nicking things. You might be like, well, she owns that. Stuffing it in her pockets while she's looking around the corner as if she's in a Target. Starts stealing the entire suit, which she's made with university resources.
Why are you guys doing this to Riri?
It might be because she's a thief, love. Probably got something to do with it.
Here to make sure she doesn't take anything that's not hers.
Good luck with that, mate.
She built that with her own grant money.
So it still belongs to MIT. That it was MIT's grant money. It's not your money, otherwise you could just buy a house with it. That's not going to stop her, though. Nicking the Iron Man suit, which I doubt is even legal even in America. They have a problem with bump stocks. They're definitely going to have a problem with that. I was hoping she'd just immediately crash. You know, keep it realistic. She has made an AI, though, called Trevor, who looks like a pencil. Presumably a callback to Word's paperclip that always used to annoy everybody. I see you're writing a letter. She's way too young to know that, though, and too stupid. She has never opened a Word document in her life. Too much work.
I'm Trevor, MIT's teaching robot, and
MIT's AI. You know when she said, oh, my AI was so expensive. MIT's AI that she stole. She has to give her student ID to give access to it, and at no point thinks, I should probably change that, I'm not a student. We do find out the reason why she doesn't just immediately crash, though.
how can I help you today?
Take us home, Trevor.
Got a bloke to drive for her. She didn't even know where Chicago was. Couldn't read a map. Although as she built the AI, it is as smart as she is.
Chicago is an American rock band.
Yeah. Only way to fix it is smacking it in the face. From one criminal to a gang of them, though. You can tell these are smart criminals because they don't want to stand out. Merge into any crowd, you won't notice them or remember their faces. How do you wipe your arse?
Black girl magic!
I have to spear it. He disables the system, though, and they decide on the infiltration aspect where they have to fight men to send in 2 women.
You're up, clown.
Oh, he said it, not me. If we're gonna give him insulting nicknames, I've got a few myself. The security system comes back on, though, and they just use this to take the piss out of him.
Don't worry, guys. I got it. Don't panic. I'm fixing it.
I'm just a man. That means I'm awful at everything. The better men's are the ones that used to be women, you see. I'm a bit confused why one of them is gaining privilege, but they don't have a problem with it, and one of them is just giving it up because they dyed their hair green. Hopefully that'll be in episode 2.
It's Rampage, not Stu. It's not Stewart.
He's annoyed because they're not calling him Rampage, and I'm like, don't give me a name then.
Rampage.
Yeah. They all think it's stupid because we're gonna call you. It's like, yeah, you may call him Stuart over the radio, which could be recorded and listened into. Stop giving your names at crime scenes.
We're not calling you that.
Why not? Everybody else has a code name.
Because they want you to get arrested. They want to give your real name while they hide theirs. Insufferable sponges.
Stuart, my guy, what is the holdup?
It was when your face popped up on my phone and I got jump scared. Sorry, it put me off. You're gonna have to go and have a lie down to recover. With that, though, they burn their way through a lock.
I call it Dragon's Breath.
If dragons did that, their stories would be a lot less impressive. But as they infiltrate the building, they open the door. Oh, no! Now, they blame Stuart for this, but I don't know what their job was except walking in.
I thought we were in the clear, Stu.
It's obviously Stuart's fault. It can't be the two women that set it off. What were their skills? Maybe it's beating up people who are 3 times their size. She definitely would have the strength to do that.
I flipped a guy.
Yeah. And punch.
Breaking news, everybody! Scott replayed another Mario game, i.e., it's Wednesday. Yeah, I just recently rolled the credits on Super Mario Odyssey again for the first time in quite a while. You know, I played through it first, you know, like when the game initially launched, and then I actually went through it again like a couple of months later. You know, that's when I got, you know, a new gameplay capture setup, so, you know, I was like, all right, well, I didn't capture the game good enough the first time, so, hey, let's get it this time. And that was like sometime in 2018, so I mean, since then, like, you know, I've kind of dabbled in it here and there. Maybe if I need to jump in, get some footage. Maybe I try to go to my initial save file and chip away at that, try to get, like, as many power moons as possible. But for the most part, I've kind of stayed away from Mario Odyssey, primarily because throughout the entire Nintendo Switch lifespan, I was kind of thinking, like, damn, I would really like to experience Mario Odyssey again. I'd really love to replay it, but any second now, a Mario Odyssey 2 is gonna get revealed. This felt like a no-brainer to get kind of the Mario Galaxy to Mario Galaxy 2 treatment. I mean, just everything they did with this game, it felt like it was just barely scratching the surface with the potential of, like, Mario's movement, the capture mechanic, the idea of going to all these different kingdoms. So, I mean, I remember even before this game released and, you know, in the coming months after its launch, you know, there was all this speculation on other kingdoms that could have been in the game, DLC that could get added. You know, a big part was like, oh man, would like Isle Delfino from Mario Sunshine appear? You know, there's like this map that you see for the entire world in Mario Odyssey, and it's shown not only in the game, but it was shown via all these advertisements, and you can also, you know, kind of see some of the landforms on the globe in the game. You know, you'd see this little dolphin shape on the map, and it was kind of like, okay, well, the Mushroom Kingdom's in Mario Odyssey, surely Isle Delfino must be in there. Well, here I am nearly a decade later talking about how I finally revisited the game because nothing goddamn happened that entire time. So, might as well, I was just dicking around. Primarily, I've been trying to get in like maybe like an hour or so a day riding the stationary bike I have down here, and something I try to do to kind of pass the time a little easier is, you know, play some games and capture some gameplay footage. Also throw on like a super long podcast or a YouTube video or something. So, man, like, I'm doing all these things at once. Multitasking, baby. That's what we call that in this house. Scientists call it a problem focusing on just one thing. I was looking for a game to play that is good to play while you're on a bike. So, you know, like something that I know how to play very well. I don't need to have the audio up crazy loud or anything. You know, like I know it well. I don't need to focus that hard on it. And while I already had gameplay footage of Mario Odyssey, because you see, I have this giant archive of gameplay footage. A lot of the videos I produce, yeah, like I need B-roll of gameplay from all different kinds of games. So, you know, it's good to just have basically every game I've ever played recorded. But the Mario Odyssey gameplay I recorded like back in 2018, there's something weird about it where like it's a little desaturated. So I just thought, you know what? Why the hell not? I'm gonna replay Mario Odyssey, get some crispier footage of it. And actually, the first time I tried to do this, see, I have this walking pad, which, you know, you're gonna get a little more action out of a walking pad, you know, especially if it's going at a higher speed. You know, you're moving your arms a lot more, you know, you're moving your legs in a more natural way. And I thought Mario Odyssey must be a perfect game to walk and play to. I'll play with detached Joy-Cons and I can move my arms around. All right, horrible idea. So, I didn't look this up, but I'm fairly certain you cannot turn off motion controls in this game. There's an option to do so in the menu. It will say like, hey, do you want to use motion controls on or off? And I said off. that doesn't disable any movement of the Joy-Con being used to fling Cappy around in this game. So then what the hell does that mean? Well, it turns off motion controls for something like, you know, like let's say you capture that tank thing in Mario Odyssey, and it disables the use of gyro when you're kind of aiming with that thing. Which is very subtle, firstly. Like, it's not a big deal at all. I don't know. It was dumb. Why is that the only thing that I can turn motion controls off for? But I just gave up. I went back to the bike, and I played with the Pro Controller. The gameplay I got first revisiting Mario Odyssey, like the first hour, that is some of the worst gameplay I've ever gotten. And if you've seen any videos I produce, you've seen my gameplay before. That's saying something. I just decided to restart my whole save file. I played on the bike with the Pro Controller. All right, this is my Mario Odyssey revisit experience. It's a good game. Who would have thought? I think it's just kind of interesting because these days I definitely see more critics of Odyssey. I don't really think anybody's calling it a bad game per se. Rather, a lot of people are kind of saying how it's just like, oh yeah, this isn't, you know, this wasn't really as good as I thought it was, or maybe not exactly the kind of Mario game I wanted and all of that. I see a lot of people criticizing the amount of Power Moons in this game, how pretty much all of the Power Moon missions are lame as dirt. A lot of them are repeated amongst all of the kingdoms. Pretty much every kingdom has like a good handful of the exact same Power Moon things that you do across all of the game. Oh, kick a rock around, grab a rabbit, find Captain Toad, herd some sheep, do the musical note thing. You know, like there's a bunch of repeat things across the whole game. And on top of that, barely any of the missions really have kind of the same, like, I guess, girth as Mario 64 or Sunshine or Galaxy's missions to get, you know, the Power Stars or Shines. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of Power Moons in this game. Like, it gets to the point where, yeah, Odyssey almost does feel like more quantity over quality, but I have a counter to that. This game is set up differently. It's structured completely differently compared to Mario 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy. It's obviously still like a sandbox 3D Mario, and like when this game was first announced, they showed this graphic that detailed that, like, okay, Mario 64 and Sunshine are sandbox, open, exploratory 3D Marios, while Galaxy 2, 3D Land, 3D World, those are linear, course clear 3D Marios, which is great to see at the time because Odyssey was sort of like a response to this ongoing just overall apathy a lot of fans were feeling towards the mainline 3D Marios at that time. The 2D ones as well, you know, everything just felt kind of bland at the end of the day. Still incredibly high quality, but very bland. You know, we hadn't gotten a more open, exploratory 3D Mario game since Sunshine. Galaxy had a couple little elements here and there, but for the most part, it was like a very, you know, straightforward linear journey. So that was really damn cool to see that Odyssey was following in those footsteps. And, you know, upon playing it, it's very obvious that they really went for sandbox and exploration. Like, that was like their big MO with this game. You know, upon my revisit, I just unlocked the Mushroom Kingdom, and obviously that kingdom is one of the biggest in the entire game, which is a really cool part of this game's post-game, is just getting that, like, huge nugget of content there. And not only is it like fun to just go through that, but you know, it's a huge bit of fan service. And you know, it feels like it's really taking a lot of those feelings of playing something like Mario 64 as a kid, where honestly, a lot of my favorite memories of Mario 64 isn't necessarily going for the Power Stars. It was kind of just exploring the level and just having fun, jumping around, seeing everything I could find, you know, finding every nook and cranny in that level. And honestly, feels like it makes a game around that, and it rewards you for exploring with more Power Moons. So Power Moons are more so just like, they're just scattered all over the place. And the fact that you don't get kicked back or anything via most Power Moons like you would getting a star in 64, I think that obviously does show, like, you know, the power moons and power stars are built differently. So yeah, like, I'm not gonna defend the fucking third moon that you get for shoving your beak in a hole in Bowser's Kingdom. But like, am I supposed to? Am I supposed to really remember that moon? Like, no. There isn't really a ton of individual power moons that are necessarily like memorable in Mario Odyssey. You know, they're all kind of just vehicles to get you to explore the environment more and more. And I think they succeed at that. I don't think it's fair to compare the missions in Mario 64 to the, in quotes, missions in Mario Odyssey, because they really, like, are these really missions? They're two different things, which brings me to how I remember some people kind of comparing Odyssey to, you know, previous Mario games, and also being like, oh man, Odyssey doesn't kick you out of the level when you get a power moon. I really wish they would do that in like 64 or Sunshine or Galaxy. And I'm like, sure, but again, it's different. 64, yeah, yeah, you can make your argument for that. But games like Sunshine and Galaxy, I don't know. I think they're structured in a certain way where, sure, you could probably make it work via like some missions, but for the most part, like, I don't know. I think it's fine. Now, Galaxy 2, the post-game of Galaxy 2 specifically, holy crap. They're like harder to find power stars. There's 120 of them in the post-game of Mario Galaxy 2. They're hard to find. They make like a very faint sound when you're nearby them, and then it kicks you out when you get them. These aren't like normal power stars. There isn't like this huge mission to nab them or anything. They're basically hidden collectibles. Like you have to try and find them in each level. That one, they should have acted more like power moons or how green stars are in like Mario 3D World. But as it stands, I have absolutely no problem with Mario Odyssey's structure because it's Mario Odyssey's structure. It works for what this game is setting out to do. This game is supposed to be a giant exploratory platformer. And yeah, it feels good. And that's the biggest thing. Like, this game feels really damn good. This is the smoothest Mario control in any game. It feels phenomenal to move around as Mario. And throwing Cappy and a lot of the things you can do with that is just such a nice extension of his moveset. Now, I will say, while Mario has really good movement in this game, I find myself doing the exact same movement over and over and over again. It's you throw Cappy, and then you dive onto Cappy, and then you get some extra distance, some extra height, and then I throw Cappy again, and then I dive again. I can't tell you how many times I did that on this playthrough. It was ridiculous. Almost got a little too much at some point where I'm just like, wow, is this all I'm doing? Like, Mario has a pretty wild moveset in this game, but how much am I actually using it? Kind of just doing the same move over and over again. There's a bunch of extra stuff you can do with the motion controls, but you know, that's kind of like one of the lamer parts about this game is the fact that there's a bunch of extra things you can do. You just are forced to do them with motion control, or they are kind of designed around motion control a little bit more. So even something as simple as like, okay, you know, throwing Cappy and having him circle around Mario. The motion to do that is kind of like, you know, like taking both the Joy-Con and kind of flicking them to the side there. Or you can throw Cappy up by flicking the controllers up. And you can do like some of this stuff with like a normal Pro controller, but it just feels like they didn't consider that. They just desperately wanted you to play with two separate Joy-Con. And I gotta be honest, no, I don't think this game feels the greatest with two separate Joy-Con and flicking one of them to throw Cappy. It's fine, but I just find this game to play better by just hitting the Y button to throw Cappy. But it's just like such a Nintendo thing with Mario Odyssey. The fact that they add all this cool stuff that you can do as a player, but so much of it requires motion control for no reason, it's ridiculous. I mean, even a lot of the captures you can get in this game, you know, like when you capture an enemy, you know, you can often do like 1 or 2 actions, but then you can often do a third action or a more powerful action by using motion control, shaking the controller as you're doing something. I'm like, what is this doing? What are we doing here? What is this adding? That does bring us to the capture mechanic, which is really cute. When it was first revealed at E3 2017, it seemed like this incredible, like, oh my god, this game is the ultimate video game. This is insane. And it still is really impressive. There's a lot of cool things, but I feel like that trailer almost made it seem like, hell, I mean, you could play the whole damn game as a bullet bill if you wanted to. You know, it's definitely based on the environment you're in, and you know, like, they design the environment around, like, okay, like, you know, here, you're gonna want to be able to blow up a wall with a bullet bill, or here, you're gonna want to stack up a bunch of Goombas. You know, it's smart, and it's a fun evolution of kind of the idea of Mario power-ups. You know, I think it's very interesting how Mario power-ups often change based on each game and how they want to do them. You know, sometimes, you know, power-ups are kind of like how they are in the 2D game, where they just genuinely power you up. Whereas with the 3D games, a lot of them, like this, and even like Mario 64, Mario Galaxy, they're often timed and only really give you like an ability that kind of lets you progress in the level. Like, oh yeah, now I can finally get past this area. The luster of that gimmick has definitely kind of worn off, but it was really cool at the time, and I still think it's a very cute and fun idea. But that's just the thing with Mario Odyssey. I think like one of the things I really like about this game the most is that everything kind of comes together in many ways. Not everything, but you know, it just feels like there's a bunch of really good ideas that the developers had with this game, and a lot of them really kind of help play into each other, and it's just so creative and it feels so good. I mean, even like basic stuff like, you know, like the ending of the game, comparing it to the beginning of the game, you know, there's so many parallels between the two. The fact that both at the beginning and the end, Mario's passed out on the ground and you have to wake him up with a jump. They incorporate some of your very first captures, like, you know, the very first capture you do in Mario Odyssey is a frog and he's hiding behind the castle, you know, before the final boss. Or, you know, the next capture you do after that, one of those like electrical pole things, and you know, that's the last thing that you do in the game. You know, like, you know, when that thing happened in the Cap Kingdom, that's where the title appeared, and then at the very end, you know, right before basically the credits hit, you know, that's one of the last things that you do. You know, the fact that they give you the new power of throwing Mario's hat, but then it also becomes something where, oh, the hat overtakes enemies and then you can control them. But then, oh, hats are a big thing, so now let's have a bunch of costumes in the game, which all makes sense because, oh man, you're a tourist, you're going to all these different kingdoms. And oh, well, that makes sense, and especially the fashion style makes sense because, oh, Bowser's planning a wedding and he's going to all these different kingdoms to grab stuff for the wedding. Like, it's just, it all comes together in obviously a very goofy and silly way. And just the fact that, I mean, even just the fact that you're collecting power moons in the game. You know, stars in Mario 64 and Galaxy, suns, you know, that's what the shine was in Mario Sunshine, and then moons in this game. So it's like, okay, well then that's what our collectible here is. But then the moon is a big element of this. And then Bowser's like wedding planning party are a bunch of rabbits. And there's kind of like a lot of folklore about rabbits being associated with the moon. So it's just a lot of things just end up kind of playing together creatively with Mario Odyssey that I think just makes this game feel very refined and very fun to just experience. It's just something where, like, when you're playing it, it's just like, oh, this is a blast.
Game Freak giveth and Game Freak taketh. That has kind of been the story of the Pokemon series in certain aspects. It has happened quite a lot for a generation to introduce something new, only then for the next game to not have it or downplay it. Think of battle gimmicks, for example, or even more specific things like Dex Nav. Fortunately, generally speaking, if something truly sticks, it continues to stick for generations on end and might very well become a new staple going forward, and that's exactly the kind of thing I want to look at today. What is the biggest change, the most important new thing every Pokemon game introduced to the series? And we begin with Yellow, seeing as Red and Blue are obviously the first games, so they introduced everything to the baseline. Yellow is far from a complete rework of Gen 1 though. Its changes are much more subtle, and while it does appear like Game Freak already had some big ideas at the time, they were only able to implement them on a very small scale. After all, the way your Pikachu is handled is reminiscent of features we'd see later, like walking Pokemon, interacting with them like Pokemon in Mirror Camp, and the early signs of friendship, as would be properly rolled out in Gen 2, are also already here for Pikachu only. So while you could pick any of these, I personally think their implementation is still a bit too barren to call them the biggest and most important changes, And instead, I want to highlight something you might have completely forgotten Yellow even did. Take a look at his Ivysaur. Now take a look at this Ivysaur. Now try Machamp, or Ekans, or Mew. Pokemon Yellow was the first game where the Pokemon actually looked like they were designed to look by Ken Sugimori around the time of Red and Blue's release. This art was used for the anime, so it had more or less become the staple at this time, and looking at the majority of Red and Blue sprites, it was easily for the better. It seems like a small thing, and it does kind of feel like if Yellow hadn't done this, Gold and Silver probably would, but if no game had ever done this, who knows if I would be here talking about Pokemon today. I'm not sure a series with the creature design of the Red and Blue sprites would have survived that long. They're not easy on the eyes. But anyway, that's very hypothetical. The point is that giving all 151 Pokemon their canon looks in-game is what I would say Yellow's biggest step forward is. And then we come to the first actual new generation, Gold and Silver, and that immediately makes our job very difficult.
You won't let
the
me take
list
my
of what
turn.
this game introduced that is still prominent and basically unmissable today is staggering. It split up special and special attack and defense, it added a day and night cycle, it segmented your bag in a way that was much easier to use, it gave trainers unique names for the first time, it introduced the dark and steel type, held items, and it continued off of Yellow to build friendship into an actual mechanic every Pokemon had. All huge changes that I'm very glad it made, but let's be real here, there are only two candidates that can truly be considered the most important: breeding and shiny Pokemon. Two actually somewhat connected changes that both have had a huge impact on the trajectory of Pokemon going forward. Breeding is an absolute staple, I don't need to tell you that. And while I do feel like the prominence of it as a focus for players has gone down in recent years, with egg moves and hidden abilities being much more widely available, it was a huge part of the Pokemon community around the DS and 3DS days. And shiny Pokemon, I mean, come on. I don't have to tell you how coveted these are. Entire communities have formed around shiny hunting, to the point it has honestly become a sort of separate entity in and of itself, kinda like how competitive battling is as well. Like, these people play the same games but in completely different ways, it's honestly incredible. So yeah, I cannot pick anything else but shiny Pokemon as the winner here. As big as breeding is, for many years and for many people, it was merely a means to getting shiny Pokemon. And now that the Masuda method isn't the top dog anymore, breeding has definitely lost a step of prominence, with shiny Pokemon still very much alive and kicking. On to the next third version, Crystal, which changed even less than Yellow did, most of its additions being way too small to feature here. As a kid, my number one favorite change this game did was introduce animations for the Pokemon when battling. This wasn't in Gold and Silver and wouldn't be in Ruby and Sapphire either, so it always made Crystal feel very alive and unique because of that. Whether it's entirely fair to pick this as the winner is a different question though. I think it's not important enough in the grand scheme of things, and it has quite a shaky legacy over the series. And if one
new wave of recurring threats, most notably the Master. However, while the Daleks eventually returned and regained their popularity in the 1970s, Cybermen's comeback was far less impactful and far more forgettable. So let's take a look at why the 1970s Cybermen didn't work. Let's roll the clock back to the 8th of October 1966, when the Cybermen made their chilling debut in the 10th planet. A landmark story, not only for introducing one of the show's most iconic monsters, but also for debuting the concept that would ensure Doctor Who's longevity, regeneration. But the Cybermen weren't just background players in this pivotal episode. Their unsettling presence in the Antarctic wilderness, combined with the horror of their origin, once fully human, now gradually converted into emotionless machines, offered fans something new and deeply unsettling. This concept of body horror, fused with cold logic, struck a chord. Created by scientist-turned-writer Kit Pedler and then script editor Jerry Davis, the Cybermen were rooted in real-world fears about the future of humanity, rather than the fantasy origins of other Doctor Who aliens. Their grounded, sci-fi plausibility made them resonate deeply with viewers. Their successful debut paved the way for a dominant presence during the Second Doctor's era. The Cybermen appeared in 4 stories during Patrick Troughton's tenure, each one expanding their mythology and refining their menace. In Moonbase, their design evolved into a sleeker, more mechanical look, complete with the electronic voices, making them eerier than ever. The Tomb of the Cybermen took us to their adopted homeworld of Telos, introduced their hierarchical structure through the Cyber Controller, and even added creatures like the Cybermats to their arsenal. The Wheel in Space continued their base under siege approach, a hallmark of the Second Doctor's era, and reinforced their strategic threat to humanity. Their 60s era arguably peaked with the Invasion, an ambitious 8-part epic that brought the Cybermen to present-day London. With help from their human ally Tobias Vaughan, they attempted a global takeover. The iconic image of Cybermen marching past St. Paul's Cathedral remains one of Doctor Who's most unforgettable moments. The invasion didn't just mark the Cybermen's high point, it also foreshadowed the direction of the upcoming Third Doctor era. The story introduced units, led by the Brigadier, and shifted the series' setting more firmly to modern-day Earth, establishing a format that would soon become the show's norm. While the invasion introduced many elements that defined the Third Doctor era, such as unit and Earth-based threats, one major component didn't carry over into the 1970s. The Cybermen themselves. But why? There are several contributing factors. First, the original creators of the Cybermen, Kit Pedler and Jerry Davis, had left Doctor Who by this point, moving on to develop their own sci-fi series, Doomwatch. Second, the 1970s brought a new recurring villain, the Master. His charisma and cunning offered a very different kind of threat and became a central figure in the Third Doctor's run, dominating much of the narrative space once occupied by monsters like the Cybermen. Additionally, the early Third Doctor era was grounded almost entirely on present-day Earth. Given the Cybermen's nature and their opposition to humanity, any attempt to reintroduce them at this stage would have likely resulted in a near repeat of the invasion. Whereas the Second Doctor's Cybermen stories unfolded in a variety of locations and time periods, such as the Moon, Telos, Deep Space, offering rich expansions of their mythology, the Earthbound format of the early 70s didn't offer the same narrative flexibility. And in that contrast lies the key weakness, the Cybermen's limited narrative range. Unlike the Master, who could adapt to virtually any setting or story type, the Cybermen were often confined to large-scale military invasions or horror-tinged survival stories. Even when the Doctor regained his ability to travel through time and space, the return of the Daleks in stories like Day of the Daleks seemed to take precedence. Aside from a blink and you'll miss it cameo in Carnival of Monsters, the Cybermen had effectively vanished. As quickly as they had become a central part of Doctor Who, they now quietly faded into the archives. By 1974, Doctor Who was once again entering a new era, one that had become arguably the most beloved of the classic run. With John Pertwee departing and both producer Barry Letts and script editor Terence Dicks moving on, the stage was set for a creative reboot. Enter Tom Baker, an eccentric, unpredictable new Doctor. Behind the scenes, new producer Philip Hinchcliffe and script editor Robert Holmes were steering the show away from Earthbound unit adventures and back towards high-concept science fiction, with a darker tone rooted in gothic horror and classic literature. It was a bold new direction, and with the Daleks already lined up for Genesis of the Daleks, it seemed sense to also bring back the Cybermen. After all, their absence had been felt since 1968's The Invasion, and the time now seemed right. To spearhead their return, Jerry Davis, co-creator of the Cybermen, returned to the show after more than 7 years. His original script, entitled Return of the Cybermen, had been commissioned by the outgoing production team, but reflected a 1960s storytelling style that no longer fit the vision of the show. Therefore, Robert Holmes was heavily rewriting the story into what would become Revenge of the Cybermen. Revenge of the Cybermen was slotted into the Season 12 story arc, set aboard the space station Nerva, linking it with the arc in space and following on directly from Genesis of the Daleks. The Doctor, Sarah and Harry return to Nerva, only to find its crew being killed off by Cybermats. The Cybermen plan to use the station as a base to destroy the planet Voga, composed largely of gold, their greatest weakness. Unfortunately, Revenge of the Cybermen suffers immediately from comparison. Following the dark, complex brilliance of Genesis of the Daleks, it feels lightweight and unambitious. Although you could argue that's not entirely fair, as no story would really want to follow Genesis. But Revenge fails to expand or deepen the Cybermen in the way of Genesis of the Daleks did for the Daleks. The plot feels overtly familiar. An isolated crew in space, a traitorous human collaborator, and a slow build-up to the Cybermen's arrival. We've seen all these elements before, and better, in stories like the Moon Base or the Invasion. There's absolutely nothing new here. The Cybermen themselves are portrayed as desperate remnants, survivors of a past war, clinging to relevance. Maybe this is a reflection of where they disappeared to on telly. This in itself could have been a fascinating angle. The Doctor sums it up by taunting them with the quote, "You have no planet, no influence, nothing. You're just a pathetic bunch of tin soldiers skulking about the galaxy in an ancient spaceship." This should have made them more dangerous. Wounded animals with nothing to lose. But the drama never lands. Tension is minimal. The script introduces the Cybermen too quickly and too plainly. The title gives away their presence, and their involvement is deduced by the Doctor almost immediately, removing any sense of suspense. If you compare that to their iconic reveal in the Invasion, you got a Cyberman bursting out of a cocoon and delivered a shocking cliffhanger moment. By contrast, Revenge of the Cybermen rushes its hand, and still, somehow, feels slow. Perhaps the most damaging blow comes from the portrayal of the Cybermen themselves. Their redesigned costumes, loosely based on the Invasion look, appear cheap and unthreatening, and even come complete with flared legs. Worse still, their robotic voices are replaced with flat human ones delivered by the actors inside the suits, stripping away that mechanical, emotionless menace that made them so iconic in the 1960s. Their behaviour is just as jarring. One early scene shows two Cybermen sitting down at a console. Why would partly mechanised beings designed for efficiency need to sit anyway? The cyber leader paces around with his hands on his hips, striking poses meant to convey confidence and authority. Again, why would emotionless creatures adopt such human body language? The humanisation of the Cybermen undermines their very concept. They no longer seem chillingly devoid of emotion, and just seem like men in silver suits. Given the long gap between the Invasion and Revenge of the Cybermen, you'd think the production team would have taken more care. All the ingredients for a successful return are mishandled. The story lacks originality. The tone doesn't match the gothic ambition of the Hinchcliffe era. The Cybermen feel diminished. The result is a rare misstep in an otherwise strong period for the show. Revenge of the Cybermen isn't the worst Doctor Who story, far from it. But sandwiched between two of the strongest stories of the classic era, such as Genesis of the Daleks and then other stories such as Terror of the Zygons, its shortcomings are painfully exposed. For a monster once seen as a top-tier threat, this return feels like a damn squib. In hindsight, it's easy to see how this happened. Holmes inherited a script that didn't reflect his creative vision. His rewrites feel dutiful rather than inspired, as if he'd rather not be dealing with the Cybermen at all, and that's perhaps what sealed their fate. The Fourth Doctor era featured memorable appearances from the Daleks, Sontarans and the Master, as well as a whole host of original villains. But the Cybermen, after this failed return, wouldn't be seen again until the 1980s. The momentum they had built in the 1960s was gone, and Revenge of the Cybermen was that moment that slipped away. Today, the Cybermen stand once again amongst Doctor Who's most iconic monsters, but it's worth remembering how close Revenge of the Cybermen came to permanently damaging that legacy. After that story aired in 1975, the Cybermen vanished from our screens for 7 long years. Then came Earthshock. By the early 1980s, producer John Nathan Turner was steering Doctor Who into a new era, following Tom Baker's departure. To ensure the Fifth Doctor's era had momentum, Nathan Turner pulled multiple narrative levers, an expanded TARDIS crew, updated production values, fresh musical identity, and crucially, the return of classic villains. After successfully reviving the Master back in 1981, the attention then turned to the Cybermen. Nathan Turner remains a divisive figure in Doctor Who history, but his handling of the Cybermen's return was one of his most effective moves. Earthshock is dark, atmospheric, and unusually violent for the series. Just like the classic Second Doctor stories, the Cybermen's reveal is held back, allowing for the suspense to build, culminating in one of Doctor Who's most iconic cliffhangers. The story, set in Earth's future, centers on the Cybermen's plan to crash a space freighter into the planet, wiping out humanity and destabilizing its alliances. A classic cyber plan. We even see the return of familiar elements, a human collaborator, a takeover from within, and the methodical elimination of a crew. But where Revenge fumbled these ideas, Earthshock handles them with real tension and cinematic flair. These Cybermen feel threatening again. They're cold, brutal, and methodical, aided by their updated militaristic design and the booming voice of David Banks as the cyber leader. And although the Doctor ultimately follows their plan, it comes at a devastating cost: the death of companion Adric. It's a moment that shocked viewers and gave the story a tragic weight rarely seen in the show. The Cybermen were finally back, and from this they would go on to appear in 3 more stories during the classic era. In the 5 Doctors, they finally had a brief but memorable confrontation with the 3rd Doctor. Attack of the Cybermen, the 6th Doctor story, was flawed in places but still presented them as imposing forces. And finally, Silver Nemesis, their last appearance in the classic run, was a messy, overstuffed story, but their inclusion still felt appropriate, even if the script didn't fully utilise them. The 1970s were a blemish in the history of the Cybermen. Their solitary outing of the decade, Revenge of the Cybermen, showed as much of the blame, though, as I've said before, it's far from the worst Doctor Who story ever made. Despite its many flaws, it remains memorable in certain positive ways. For one, it holds the honour of being the very first Doctor Who story released on home video in 1983, a landmark moment in the show's fandom. The reuse of the Nerva beacon sets from the Ark in Space, transformed from sterile white to a more run-down grey, is an absolute clever idea and an effective bit of cost saving, one that fits the tone of the story. And the location filming at Wookiee Hole Caves in Somerset adds that eerie realism to the underground setting of Voga. The Cybermats themselves, often overlooked, are arguably an improvement on their 1960s counterparts. The new flatworm-inspired design, coupled with their ability to leap at victims and inject a deadly poison, gives them a deadly sense of menace. And while the Cybermen redesigns are a letdown, the decision to visually distinguish the Cyber Leader with a black helmet is a detail that has endured and continues to be used to this day. Tom Baker too, still in his first season as the Doctor, demonstrates the magnetic presence that would define his time in the role. His ability to draw attention and carry the focus often helps mask the story's limitations, a skill he would deploy repeatedly through his tenure. So no, Revenge of the Cybermen isn't actually a total disaster, but that doesn't excuse the fact that it played a major role in diminishing the Cybermen's reputation. The question is, did it ever stand a real chance of successfully reviving the Cybermen's stature? Well, maybe. Under the stewardship of Philip Hinchcliffe and Robert Holmes, Doctor Who is about to embark on a dark and more horror-influenced tone. And yet, Revenge of the Cybermen feels strangely tame, a throwback to the past at a time when the show was evolving rapidly. A grittier, more atmospheric approach might have given the Cybermen the resurgence they truly needed. Instead, Revenge of the Cybermen ended up as a missed opportunity, a flat return for one of Doctor Who's most iconic villains. But fortunately, this wasn't the end of the Cybermen, just a pause. And when they returned in the 1980s, they finally brought back that sought-after menace and threat. But what do you think? Were the 1970s Cybermen a disappointment? Do you think Revenge of the Cybermen is a better story than I'm giving it credit for? Maybe it's your favourite Cyberman story. If not, what is? Let us know in the comments below. But for now, it's the end, but the moment has been prepared for.
I never would. Have you got that?
The 10th Doctor is the man who never would. Why do I prefer this guy?
There should have been another way.
The The Fifth Doctor is in classic Who. Imagine waking up in a body that
Court is now in session.
Stick around to find out why 5 is the most perfectly imperfect Doctor in classic Who. Imagine waking up in a body that isn't your own. You feel like you used to, but everyone treats you differently.
Do you know, I think since his regeneration, he's become decidedly immature.
From the minute he arrives, the Fifth Doctor is in a no-win situation. His TARDIS is home to 3 very scared young people. 5 has to be the father of the group, keeping everyone together and keeping them alive.
Doctor, it's Tegan. She's trying to move the TARDIS.
Oh, good grief.
But there's a problem. 5 is an old man trapped in a young man's body.
Why does no one ever listen to me? Do I just have a face that nobody listens to?
Try as he might, he can't get anyone to take him seriously.
Too many people have died for you to play the fool.
This would be hard enough, but there's another problem. 5 looks human, but isn't. Every Doctor is an outsider. They live on the margins of human society. Each incarnation handles their otherness differently. Some just have natural authority. They can afford to seem different because people will still listen to them.
I don't make threats, but I do keep promises. And I promise you, I shall cause you more trouble than you bargained for if you don't return my property.
Others lean into their difference. They let people believe that they're stupid or foolish. Then they use this to their advantage.
Of course, it would have been much nicer to have stolen one of the pictures, but I've tried that before and all sorts of alarms go off.
My dear, I don't think he's as stupid as he seems.
My dear, nobody could be as stupid as he seems.
How does 5 handle being an outsider? Well, bear with me, I think the answer actually lies in his costume. The cricketing outfit is supposed to make 5 seem approachable. It signals that this Doctor is a team player and an all-round good sport. But that stick of celery on the lapel is a dead giveaway that there's more to this character. He has an alien side, a dark side. I've seen complaints that the Fifth Doctor is boring. I would say 5 seems bland by design. The Fifth Doctor hides his alienness. He doesn't necessarily hide where he comes from, but he hides the parts of himself which others won't be able to relate to. Instead, like his costume, 5 tries to exude charm. Occasionally, though, the Time Lord within bleeds through. Watch closely and you'll catch these small moments of 5 walking through corridors or moving his hands in an alien way, or moments where he just can't relate to the people around him.
Why does she always overreact?
I think she's finding the idea of going more painful than she thought.
Then why didn't she say so?
This Doctor works really hard to blend in with his surroundings, but it's not always successful. Black Orchid is probably the best example. 5 literally puts on a costume to hide his identity. Then the mask is removed and 5 gets accused of murder.
Just exactly who are you and what are you doing here?
I'm afraid if I told you, you wouldn't believe me. I'm a Time Lord.
A what?
I told you.
And Fifth Doctor defenders tend to describe him as vulnerable. But it's not just vulnerability that makes 5 interesting. It's the way he tries to cover it up. This Doctor doesn't just hide his otherness, he also hides his emotions. 5 pushes down pain or frustration, but every so often, it rises to the surface, and you get that wide-eyed, squeaky-voiced performance.
And it would help. It really would help if there wasn't some skinny idiot ranting in my face about every single thing that happens to be in front of him.
5's character is quite like the TARDIS, actually. It seems uninteresting on the surface, but there's so much going on inside.
Now, don't jump to conclusions, Adric. Sometimes we humanoids try to disguise our true feelings.
So, what about 5's companions? Are they just as complicated? And why do we need 3 of them? Picture this. Someone just killed your entire family and wiped out your whole planet. You're scared and alone. Your only option is to run away with a complete stranger.
Master killed my stepmother, and then my father. And now the world that I grew up in.
Then that stranger dies and changes his face. Now you don't know where to go or who to trust. Sounds like a horror movie, right? Well, this is the origin story for Five's companions. Many doctors and companions meet in less than ideal circumstances. But the Fifth Doctor's era is different because it approaches companions kind of like a David Attenborough documentary. Every episode, we zoom in on these people and see how time travel is affecting them. This makes for some fascinating character drama. Let's talk about Four to Doomsday. By this story, everyone has just lost their families. They've seen the Doctor regenerate, and now he can't even get the TARDIS to work. I think the character work gets lost in this story, maybe because of its wonky production values. But there's actually some really strong characterization here. Tegan is feeling out of control. That's why she's desperate to get back to normal life as an air stewardess. When this doesn't happen, she tries to regain control by shouting. She's also terrified of losing her planet after having just lost everything else. And frankly, fair enough. So Tegan fixates on saving Earth from the Urbankins.
Please, will you stop thinking of yourself? I'm not thinking of myself. We've got to get to Earth and warn them.
Adric, meanwhile, has just lost two important people. His brother Vash and the Fourth Doctor. He's not sure what his role is in this TARDIS anymore. He's not even sure if the Doctor still wants him.
Perhaps one of us should stay with Nissa, Adric.
No.
We'll see you both later.
So Adric compensates by showing off. Then he meets this evil alien frog who promises Adric a world without suffering. And of course, Adric instantly falls for it.
Just think of it, Nissa. No more hunger. No more wars. Fine schools. Fine hospitals.
Fine tyranny.
I know people find Adric insufferable here, but think about it for a second. Cults prey on vulnerable people. If you were 15 years old and you'd just seen this, and this,
Farewell, my friends. Farewell forever. No!
wouldn't you want to believe in paradise? Nissa suppresses feelings with logic and channels everything into her science projects. She's kind of like a duck, calm on the surface while desperately paddling to stay afloat. By the end of this story though, Nissa is exhausted and collapses.
Doctor,
Nissa?
You might argue that Davison's era underplays the trauma these characters go through. And yeah, to a certain extent I would agree. The reactions of these characters to events are definitely not always realistic.
But while you were enjoying 48 hours peaceful sleep in the Delta Wave Augmenter, my mind was occupied.
Classic Who is very episodic, and it doesn't always give character arcs the same attention as New Who would.
Amy Pond, the girl who waited, you've waited long enough.
Things like a companion's death were barely acknowledged after they'd just happened.
Adric is dead.
Tegan, please.
We feel his loss as well.
Well, you could do more than grieve. You could go back.
However, I still enjoy this era, because you can see how the past has shaped these characters. Take Nissa in Arc of Infinity. When the Doctor is sentenced to death, Nissa has a breakdown.
Over here, Doctor.
No, Nissa, I will not have blood spilt to save my life.
Her sudden shooting spree may seem out of character, but we forget that Nissa has been holding it together with sellotape ever since the Master stole her father's corpse.
New body. At last.
Losing the Doctor, the only friend she has left, is the last straw.
There was a lot of anger and pain in there, and she had transferred those feelings onto the Doctor. Anything that threatened the Doctor would force her, a very rational girl, to respond in a very emotional way.
While they have their faults, both as people and in terms of the way they're written, these companions still feel like living, breathing people to me. Sure, this TARDIS team barely talks about their losses, but it actually feels appropriate. As we know, Doctor Who characters face death so often, they have to move on quickly. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to cope.
Always moving on because you dare not look back. Playing with so many people's lives, you might as well be a god.
What's beautiful about the Fifth Doctor's era is that across the series, we see the Doctor and his companions learn to work together. What starts off as open hostility turns into this affectionate banter.
So you're stuck with me, aren't you?
So it seems.
And each companion develops as individuals too. Nissa learns from Tegan and becomes more assertive.
You're beginning to sound like Tegan.
I begin to understand how she feels.
Adric becomes more selfless.
We've done all we can do. This is your planet.
I know, and I realise the consequences of this freighter crashing into it.
And Tegan learns to enjoy time travel.
It's like Earth after a thunderstorm.
Same cause and reason.
Beautiful. Can't we stay here?
Why not?
But Lingua, why do we need 3 companions? Surely 1 or 2 would be way better. Yes, juggling 3 companions is tricky, and the show doesn't always do it very well. Often, one companion gets sidelined to give the others time to shine.
Which is why I think when it came to Kinder, they put Nissa in the cupboard for 2 episodes so that Janet could have a decent story. 3 is too many.
Yet, this era still does characterization pretty efficiently. Watch the episodes in order and you'll notice that the writers pair off different castmates every story. One episode it's Adric and the Doctor, the next it's Adric and Tegan. Watching these characters play off each other, we get a strong sense of them, even when they're only on screen for a few minutes.
I think I can move them.
Let me try, I'm stronger.
But not as determined.
And while it's difficult to write, I love the dysfunctional family dynamic that this era goes for. Some fans say that Five doesn't even care about his companions, and I do see why you might think that. As we've established, Five is emotionally detached, and admittedly, his TARDIS team does fight pretty much every episode.
Whereas John felt that the way of making them interesting was to make them kind of combative.
Again, I would say that Five does care, but being an alien, he just expresses it differently. Like in this scene, where he's obviously glad that Tolo is staying on, but he can't quite say this out loud.
You changed your mind about going home?
I thought I would learn more if I stayed with you.
As for the arguing, I think this is one of those cases where the people you love are the people that you're more likely to hurt. The fighting is a sign not that these characters hate each other, but that they trust each other enough to speak their minds. Another common complaint is that Five doesn't have a definitive companion. I don't really get this, because personally, I think they're all definitive. Each companion has a different role, and each one tells us something different about Five's character. Tegan is the advocate. She holds the Doctor accountable. Over time, she becomes his inner voice.
What was it you always told me, Doctor? Braveheart?
But while this inner voice can be comforting, it can also be really harsh. Tegan often voices Five's insecurities. She expresses all the self-doubt that Five can't express himself.
Yourself a Time Lord. Broken clock keeps better time than you do. At least it's accurate twice a day, which is more than you ever are.
Nissa is the sensible middle child.
Oh dear, it's all getting rather silly, isn't it?
Oh, I didn't mean to be so rude.
Why don't you calculate the course home? Show the Doctor it can be done.
She's also a really interesting mirror to the Doctor. Both are intelligent, withdrawn outsiders who have been cut off from their home planets. This parallel becomes even more apparent when the Doctor loses his entire species in the Time War. Nissa also teaches us about the Doctor's sense of morality. Where Nissa tends to think in black and white, Five's moral code is a lot greyer. This creates drama. Five is willing to endanger one person for the greater good. Nissa, not so much.
But you've had this dream, this particular dream before.
Doctor, stop it.
Haven't you? The same feelings of fear remain.
Doctor, it doesn't matter. You're awake now. It was only a dream.
Adric symbolises this Doctor's fallibility. As the baby of the family, Adric shows us that Five can be just as powerless as the children he's trying to protect.
Please
Please hurry, Doctor. We must get Adric off the freighter.
The console's damaged.
We must save Adric. There's so little time.
Adric's death raises the stakes. It reminds you that traveling with this doctor is dangerous, and not everyone comes out alive. Then we have Turlo. What is the point of Turlo? Well, I think Turlo is here to teach us about heroism. Turlo is cowardly.
You can't just leave him.
Face him, Tegan! He's drowned!
What?
He runs from danger and will sacrifice other people to save himself. Usually, Turlo's cowardice emphasizes Five's bravery. But in stories like Warriors of the Deep, the Doctor panics, follows Turlo's advice, and things end badly. Together, these two characters show us different ways to respond to fear. Speaking of, I've been avoiding the elephant in the room.
There should have been another way.
There's something we haven't talked about yet. Is the Fifth Doctor cruel?
I ain't no nice guy after all.
This is a difficult question. To answer it, we need to ask some other questions first. Is being violent the same as being cruel? Is violence ever justified? And if so, where is the line? One story that tries to answer this question is Warriors of the Deep. Warriors of the Deep is a Cold War allegory, and it is deeply flawed.
Oh dear.
What is it?
The Merca.
In this story, an army of Silurians and Sea Devils meet some humans on a base. Both sides want to kill each other. The Doctor tries to talk them down, but can't. The Silurians and the Sea Devils attack, planning to start a war which will wipe out humanity. The Doctor, reluctantly, is persuaded to gas them.
What about you, Doctor? What the hell are you changing into?
The story ends with humans and reptilians dead. In this story, Five is cruel. However, to me, he seems cruel not by design, but because of bad writing. I understand the point this episode wants to make. If we let conflict escalate, there will be mass destruction. The episode tries to convince you that the Doctor has no choice but to use the gas. However, like the Interstellar Song Contest, this story is using a false dichotomy. Either the reptilians die, or everything is destroyed. There's no middle ground, no other solution. And presenting genocide as the only solution to this problem feels horrifically dishonest. It's also hard to take this so-called moral dilemma seriously. The production values in this episode are hilarious. The characters are two-dimensional, and this makes it harder to take the Doctor seriously. Therefore, his actions seem even more incomprehensible. But there's a bigger problem, a problem also found in the Interstellar Song Contest. After using the gas, the Doctor gets no consequences.
This is totally unacceptable.
Yeah, he feels guilty, but no one calls him out, and the events in this episode are mostly forgotten. Warriors of the Deep and the Doctor's behaviour in it are indefensible. But putting this episode aside for a minute, is Five a cruel person overall? Well, it's complicated, but you could argue yes. He does use violence to solve problems. And sometimes this feels unnecessary.
Help me! Please!
However, I think you could also say the same about many of the Doctors.
Pity on me!
I have pity for you.
15!
Bye, Davros.
Most use violence, and many have moments where that violence feels cruel.
Let you on me.
What are you doing?
Well, I was going to get him to draw our way back to the TARDIS.
Look, son. Missiles. See them shine. See how valuable they are. And they're all yours.
Good luck.
Personally, I'm not totally against this show being violent. I don't mind the Doctor having a dark side because the alternative is often worse.
Guns, never use them.
They're gonna kill us with their guns.
Put the gun down, Ryan.
In New Who, the Doctor is frequently written as a pacifist, but their pacifism can hurt the story. Because the Doctor can't use violence, a side character sacrifices themselves or blows things up.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 1.
The problem is still solved with violence. It's just not the Doctor doing it. This doesn't make the Doctor heroic. It just makes them hypocritical.
The man who abhors violence. Never carrying a gun. You take ordinary people and you fashion them into weapons.
It gets better when Doctor Who shows why violence isn't the answer. I'm more likely to agree that violence is wrong if the show makes a convincing argument. However, violence must have consequences.
Every great decision creates ripples. Like a huge boulder dropped in a lake. The ripples emerge, rebound off the banks, lump slip away.
Genesis of the Daleks is great because it shows how violence has terrible outcomes, even when it's done for the greater good.
What if I kill? Wipe out a whole intelligent life form? Then I become like them. I've been no better than the Daleks.
The Time War has lasting consequences, not just for the Doctor, but the entire universe. 5 does receive more consequences than other incarnations of the Doctor. I'm not talking about Warriors of the Deep here, but his era in general. 2 of 5's companions die. Tegan leaves because life in the TARDIS has become too violent.
Tegan. It's stopped being fun, Doctor.
5 grows increasingly withdrawn and miserable.
Doctor, becoming obsessed. Yes, obsessed and depressed.
In the end, he chooses not violence and destruction, but kindness. 5 dies, sacrificing himself for his new companion. This is more than I can say for the next era, where the Doctor is self-centered, cruelty becomes casual, and there are no consequences whatsoever.
Give me if I don't join.
The 5th Doctor's era has big problems. But there's one thing about this that I love. 5 and his companions aren't heroes by default. They have to choose the heroic path. And sometimes they get it wrong.
Hesitate, Doctor. If I were you, I would be dead.
I lack your practice, Davros.
Action requires courage, something you lack.
No, the execution of this idea isn't perfect. Sometimes it's downright harmful. Still, I enjoy watching a character learn how to be good. I find it much more impressive than a character who is automatically good because the scriptwriter says so.
You asked me if you're a good man, and the answer is, I don't know. But I think you try to be, and I think that's probably the point.
Every episode, the Doctor meets monsters. Yet, not many eras of Doctor Who have me asking if the Doctor can actually win. Even fewer episodes show me the monsters living inside the Doctor's head. They can be the scariest monsters of all. Davison's incarnation brought me closer to the Doctor as a character than any of the others. While no, his era isn't perfect, I would say that's exactly the point. Thanks for watching Lingua Anomaly. Don't forget that overthinking is a superpower, and there is beauty in the way that you think. And I've lost the page, where is it? Oh. But there's actually some really strong Oh no, don't knock the mic over. Run, cheeky monkey. A problem also found in the pretty efficiently. Rani, I swear to God. Let's talk about The damn heater keeps clicking. Let's talk about the skeletons in Five's closet. Ah, there's something we haven't...